Hey guys, we're looking at chapter 7 now as we move forward with the class. I want to will have also faxed you. I will have also sent you the links to the YouTube. You'll have a copy of it, plus a couple of others coming through. Please look at those, and that'll make your life a little bit better from that standpoint. The first slide that we're looking at is basically a comparison of power walking versus racing. And in doing that, we have a situation where you're seeing how much faster, in fact, almost a running speed that these power racers are going. Or from that standpoint, they're getting 8 to 9 miles per hour, which is a good jog from that standpoint. I will also looking at slide 2. I want you to look at it from a standpoint I'm proposing, and I need your reaction to adjust our assignment schedule. From that standpoint, we are in we've really got to do 2 more chapters, chapter 7 and chapter 8, and chapter 8 includes Supersize Me. It includes my plate kind of things, and probably move the exam to a late week of April. More discussion on that later, but let me know how your other classes are affecting you, what we should do from that standpoint as we move forth. From that, because we can really finish up in 5 weeks if we go that route. But same token, I'm a realist. I know you've got other classes that are hitting you, and I don't want to overburden you from that standpoint. Looking down to just a second as I make some adjustments. Looking into slides 6 and 4, we've got some answers there for you from the chapter 6 quizzes and what have you, just to recapitulate those, what the overload principle is, the difference between muscular strength, muscular endurance, also how many times you should exercise per week, and 3 types of muscular contraction, whether it be eccentric, concentric, or isometric type functions. Moving on into chapter, further in the chapter, just to be cognizant when you're in line of fitness on slide 12, it's about you and being as best you can be, not always necessarily comparing to you or somebody else from that standpoint. I will send you copies of the PowerPoints on God's Pharmacy and proportion distortion. A lot of times we don't have an idea how many calories is in a group of food, and also that speaks to slide 14 also. Getting into the heart of the chapter on chapter 16, basically looking at food content. It has calories, and from the standpoint of having calories, you're in a situation there that you're worrying about how many calories you get per. So basically carbohydrates typically have 4 calories per gram. Same for proteins. Fats have twice as many, 9 calories per gram. And just in case you're imbibing in alcohol, that's 7 calories per gram. So as we move forth, foods are made up of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Carbs basically help you with your brain and muscle, and serve as fuel for both brain and muscles. More about the types of carbs in a minute. Proteins basically are needed for growth, repair, hormones, and enzymes. And energy sources come from fats. There's a stored energy, and they're also a vehicle for vitamin A, D, and K. Got to have that. Picking up on slide 19, carbs are your main energy source. By my plate standards today, and USDA recommends you get between 50 and 70% of your meals come in from carbs. And there's 2 types of carbs that are taking place. One is simple carbs. Basically, simple carbs, if you can look at any C-store in the world, stop there for sodas, candy, sweets, and fruit, and what have you. Typically, it's different kinds of things that have processed foods, and generally with glucose, sucrose, fructose as a molecular molecule in a situation, they will spike your blood sugars quickly and also lead to a lot of fat deposits. Where in slide 21, the complex carbs are just the opposite. They're not, most of the time, non-processed foods such as pasta, rices, beans, potatoes in their natural forms, and then they contain tons of nutrients and fiber and chains of glucose molecules that are much harder to break down, much slower to make down, and basically are slow released. That is an advantage in certain things we do. In slide 22, Dr. Atkins came in about 10 years ago and had the Atkins diet. His low carb mania was to have as few carbs as possible, eat a lot of fats, a lot of proteins, and basically things would go better from that standpoint. Well, and lose weight. Well, indeed you would. However, it's not a fully nutritious meal to cut all that many carbs out, and a lot of things were not happening. So even athletes now that are doing marathon endurance events are carbo loading, typically a day or two in advance of the event, so they can have slow energy release throughout the course of their event. Also, even during the event, they will use, instead of candies or sweets, they will use something like power bars or goo as a mid-race snack to keep their power or their energy levels up. Again, the slow release is the thing that we're looking for in that situation. Looking in slide 25, let's change our focus for a second. The types of bread. Most of us eat sandwich breads and various kinds of breads and what have you. But did you think that most of the nutritional value, a lot of the nutritional value is thrown away when the husk is milled off of the grain? Looking on in slide 27, if you break down just if this were a typical standard grain of wheat, yes, we like that white starch from the inside. However, if that's all we get, we don't get any of the bran, which is outside, which has vitamin B, various minerals, and the wheat germ, which also has essential fats, minerals, and vitamins to it. So we're getting only partially the bang. So your goal would be to eat whole grain type breads, flours, and all that kind of good stuff. In addition, in 28, there's a call to have roughage. Part of that fiber from that bran also serves as roughage, as do other vegetables, and helps promote regularity and those kind of things. The fibers that you get will either be soluble, and they'll decrease as cholesterol levels that's found in oat bran, fruit or veggies. And there's some insoluble ones that can reduce the risk of colon cancer. Because in essence, by your fecal matter staying in your intestines too long, it can cause problems, and that's where we don't want to go. Typically, if you walk through the produce section and look at all the fresh vegetables there, it's a great place to get a lot of foods with fiber. Celery and carrots and what have you come to mind real quickly. When it comes to fats, we are recommended that we keep our fat level under 10%. USDA is also moving that number to 7% in the next few years. So basically, if you go lean by eating fish, chicken, poultry, limit the amount of egg yolks you're using, organ meat or shellfish. Seafood is recommended heavily. You will do a lot better. Also, as to fats, two vitamins that you're very much familiar with, vitamin B and vitamin C, are water soluble. So the way they transport the body is pretty easy because you're 60% water anyway. However, the fat is the carrier for vitamin A, D, E, and K. And in doing that, you've got to have a certain amount of fats in your body just to make that function happen. One of the things that happens with fats, or sort of defining fat, two particular kinds, saturated fats, and these saturated fats are typically solid at room temperature. An example of that would be like lard, or tropical oils like coconut oil. And that would be a saturated fat. Unsaturated fats, such as poly or mono saturated fats, are typically room temperature, and they're liquids, such as vegetable oil, canola oil, Wesson oil, all those kind of things happen all the time. And moving on into slide 34, industrialists and we folks like to spread butter or pats of margarine on our toast sometime. Well, to get that, they take that liquid oil that we've talked about as an unsaturated fat, add a hydrogen ion to it, which makes it solid, and then you've got something called margarine or shortening. Shortening would be Crisco. It's all out of vegetable oil. In recent years, coming in slide 35, Frito-Lay's is one of the huge chip manufacturers and snack manufacturers in the country. That they have always trying to make their products more healthy. Well, one of the things they did is change their formulas to use sunflower oil instead of cottonseed oil to eliminate some of the fats that they've got going on. In addition, they came up with a fat that they thought was just the panacea. It was called olestra. Olestra could pass through the intestines, be the carrier for taste and what have you, but not be digested. One problem, it caused diarrhea, so they are still working with that. Some of the things that they've done and some of the research are branded under Take Control, Simple Ease, Benecol, and just look at those smart balanced foods to see where there's no fats or no trans fats. That's what you're looking for. Other ways to decrease fat consumption is just a way to prepare food. In slide 36, if we bake things or grill them and not fry them, we cut down a lot of fats in their process. Some of you may, if I remember correctly, may be a vegetarian in the class. And basically, if you're vegetarian, by definition, you exclude all forms of meat from your diet. However, you generally do ingest dairy foods and eggs in your diet. So it is a vegetarian state. However, some folks go a little bit further than that and go to the vegan state. Vegans basically exclude all forms of meat from their diet, also included are dairy products and eggs. Now, one of the downsides of this, you get vitamin B12 from meat sources from that standpoint, and you generally have to have a supplement in your diet to take care of that loss that you're experiencing otherwise. Proteins in your body basically take care of growth and repair of all the body cells. And in doing it, there's two different kinds that if they're coming from animal side, they're called complete. If they're coming from the vegetable side, they're incomplete. And that's the reason you get back to the vegan situation needing the vitamin B12, because not everything is in the vegetable side. If you're looking at a lot of amino acids in the N and I and E, be thinking protein, and you'll be right most of the time. More information on sources of proteins in slide 40. Also, vitamins. Vitamins are a mineral that is absolutely necessary for your physiological body processes. However, they don't contain any calories whatsoever. And, as I said before, vitamin A, D, E, and K are fat transportable, so you have to have some fat in your body from that standpoint. If you overabsorb vitamin B or vitamin C, since it's a water soluble, you can urinate it out. Nay, not so when it comes to vitamin A, D, or K. So you have to be careful not to get too much. In the normal diet, you're not even close to the maximum. Looking at slide 45, we're looking at products being fortified. Fortified means added to. So typically vitamins are added to products like vitamin A and D, milk. You look at kids' cereals. You look at grain cereals that have folic acid added, and a lot of times pregnant ladies have to take folic acid as part of a childbirth regimen to make sure they don't have birth defects type problems. So typically in 46, different folks who need vitamins would be pregnant women, alcoholics, elderly, folks with several different problems, vegetarians, vegans, are generally good to have supplements going on. On minerals, two different types of minerals, basically looking in slide 49. The major minerals are chloride, sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron. Trace minerals are phosphorus, iodine, zinc, and selenium. And basically in 50, calcium helps obviously with the bones. Iron is necessary in the blood supply to carry oxygen. Phosphorus helps build your teeth and bones. Sodium basically regulates water in your body. Zinc aids in healing, potassium and muscle functions and what have you. I will freeze frame now and pick you up on slide 51 on a second tape. Thank you much.